When we talk about success in our world today, most people instantly imagine money, status, recognition, the applause of others, the glitter of achievement. And there is nothing inherently wrong with ambition, with the desire to rise, to create, to achieve. But here is the critical truth that Carl Jung reminds us of: when success is driven by selfishness, when it is powered only by ego, that success becomes a trap. It looks golden from the outside, but it is hollow within. And the more you chase it, the more it consumes you, until one day you realize that all your trophies, all your victories, all the praise you fought so hard for, mean almost nothing to your soul. Jung called the ego a necessary part of human life, but he warned us against making it the center of our existence. When success is only about serving the ego, protecting it, feeding it, glorifying it, it becomes what I call an empty victory. You win the game, but you lose yourself in the process. Think about the people you may have encountered in your own life, or the stories you've heard. That businessman who spends every waking hour building an empire, chasing deals, collecting titles. On the surface, he looks powerful. But in the quiet of the night, when the meetings are over and the phone finally stops buzzing, he lies awake in bed and realizes he has no true friends, no one to share his soul with, no child who wants to sit at his feet and learn from him. He chased selfish success, but the cost was intimacy, love, and connection. This is exactly what Jung meant when he said that people who identify too strongly with the persona, the mask they wear for society, end up estranged from their true self. The mask of success is seductive. It tells you, if only you get that next promotion, if only you buy that next car, if only the world claps a little louder, you will finally feel whole. But Jung reminds us that wholeness does not come from feeding the ego. It comes from integrating the parts of ourselves we have ignored, the shadow we have rejected, the deeper voice of the unconscious we have silenced. Selfish success is dangerous because it distracts us from this inner journey. It keeps us constantly looking outward for validation instead of inward for meaning. It's like trying to fill a bottomless cup. You pour and pour, but it is never enough. How many celebrities, how many so-called icons, have reached the peak of worldly success only to collapse into addiction, loneliness, or despair? Their story is not one of weakness, it is one of imbalance. They mastered the outer game, but neglected the inner one. And without that inner balance, success tastes like ashes. Let me share with you a story that many of you might recognize in different forms. A woman I once knew was the very picture of accomplishment. She had the career, the wardrobe, the accolades. Every time she walked into a room, people whispered, "That's her, the one who made it." And for years she fed on that whisper, believing it was proof of her worth. But late one evening, at a dinner, I remember looking across the table and seeing her eyes. There was a kind of quiet desperation in them, as if she was silently asking, "Does anyone see me? The real me?" Because she had given the world her persona, her mask of power, but had hidden away her true self. And when I later learned of her breakdown, I thought of Jung. Because he said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. She had built her life around avoiding that acceptance, and it cost her dearly. This is the ego trap. You keep performing, achieving, collecting, but the more you win, the more distant you become from your own soul. Jung called this the inflation of the ego, when the self becomes so wrapped in its own image that it forgets its essence. And in that forgetting, life becomes shallow, mechanical, meaningless. Now let's make this practical, because I don't want this to sound like abstract philosophy. Many of you are chasing dreams right now. You want to succeed. And that's beautiful. But I want you to pause and ask yourself, Who is this success for? Is it only for you, to prove you are better than others, to silence your insecurities, to outshine your peers? Or is it also for something larger, for growth, for contribution, for creating value that touches more lives than your own? Because here is the paradox: the more selfish your success, the emptier it feels. The more meaningful your success, the more it multiplies, because it resonates beyond you. Jung believed that when you ignore your deeper self, when you live only for ego and selfish gain, your unconscious will eventually revolt. It will show up in dreams, in depression, in sudden crises that force you to confront what you've ignored. This is why so many high achievers face what we call a midlife crisis. They wake up one day and ask, "Is this all there is?" And that question is not failure, it is the unconscious crying out for meaning. It is the soul demanding to be heard. And isn't that the ultimate irony? That the world may look at the selfishly successful and say, "You've made it." But inside, they feel more lost than ever. They conquered the mountain, but at the top, they found nothing but fog. I want you to reflect on this with me. What is the point of a success that costs you your peace of mind? What is the value of applause if you cannot even sit alone with yourself in silence without feeling restless? What is the meaning of a victory if it leaves you isolated from love, from joy, from authenticity? These are not just philosophical questions. They are life questions. Because you and I, all of us, are going to face them, whether at 30, at 50, or at 80. Jung's wisdom gives us the courage to face them earlier, to not wait for the crisis, to begin now asking ourselves, am I feeding my ego, or am I feeding my soul? Selfish success is like chasing a mirage in the desert. You run and run, believing that the next achievement will finally quench your thirst. But when you arrive, your throat is still dry, your lips still cracked, and you realize the water was never there. The water you seek has always been inside you, your authentic self, your wholeness, your individuation. And that cannot be found by building higher towers of ego. It can only be found by looking inward, by integrating who you truly are, by daring to face the parts of yourself you have been running from. I want you to imagine for a moment that you are holding two mirrors. One mirror shows you how the world sees you, your success, your image, your reputation. The other mirror shows you how you see yourself when no one is watching. The selfishly successful spend their lives polishing the first mirror, but they never look into the second. And when at last they do, they are shocked, sometimes devastated, by the stranger looking back at them. Jung's work calls us to look into that second mirror every day, to reconcile the image with the essence, the mask with the soul. And here is the hope: selfish success may be an ego trap, but it is not a life sentence. At any point, you can step off that treadmill and ask, what does my soul want? Jung believed that even our darkest shadows, our mistakes, our obsessions with ego, can become guides if we listen to them. They are not punishments, they are signals. They are telling us, this is not the way. There is something deeper waiting for you. So I invite you, as you reflect on your own journey, to ask yourself, am I building a life that looks successful, or a life that feels meaningful? Am I feeding my ego, or am I nurturing my soul? Because in the end, selfish success may impress the world, but it cannot heal the emptiness inside. And meaningful success may not always be loud, it may not always make headlines, but it will give you what the ego never can, a life that feels whole. And so, as you step out into your own path of achievement, carry this with you: selfish success is an illusion, a shadow that fades. But meaningful success, rooted in authenticity, in connection, in purpose, that is the kind of success that endures, that nourishes not just your ego but your entire being. And the warning is simple: do not win the world and lose your soul. Because in the quiet moments of life, when all the noise fades away, it is not the applause you will long for, it is the peace of knowing you lived true to yourself. When we think about the kind of success that truly matters, the kind of success that nourishes us instead of draining us, Carl Jung points us to a very different path. It is not the path of the ego, of constant proving and performing. It is the path of individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are. And this is where meaningful success begins, because meaningful success is not just about what you achieve, it is about who you become in the process and how your becoming touches the lives of others. Jung believed that each of us carries within us a deeper self, a potential that is often hidden beneath layers of conditioning, expectations, and social masks. He called this the self with a capital S. It is more than your personality, more than your title, more than your accomplishments. It is the wholeness of who you are, waiting to be lived. Meaningful success flows from this wholeness. It arises when the work you do, the choices you make, the life you build is aligned with your authentic self instead of merely serving your ego. Now, that might sound abstract, so let me bring it down to earth. Imagine a musician who plays only to sell records, to climb charts, to be adored. That's ego-driven success. But imagine another musician who sings because the music is in their soul, because the songs are the language of their truth, because in sharing that music, they give people courage, healing, hope. That's meaningful success. One may have more money, but the other has more impact. And which do you think will carry a deeper sense of fulfillment when the spotlight fades? Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Think about that for a moment. The privilege of a lifetime. That's not just a poetic phrase, it's a direction for your life. To live a life of meaningful success means you are not borrowing someone else's dream, not wearing someone else's mask, not chasing society's definition of achievement. You are listening to the quiet voice inside of you that says, "This is what I was born to do. This is how I can serve. This is who I am meant to be." But here's the paradox: becoming who you truly are is not just for you. It is for the world. Because when you align with your true self, you naturally begin to give back. You cannot help but serve. Your gifts, your talents, your insights, your presence, they stop being tools of self-promotion and start becoming instruments of transformation. Jung's psychology teaches us that individuation is not isolation. It is not about becoming a self-centered island. It is about integration, about wholeness, and from that wholeness flows connection. Let me tell you a story that illustrates this. There was a man who spent years climbing the ladder of corporate life. He was smart, disciplined, and strategic, and he reached a level of success that many would envy. But at some point, he began to feel empty. The work no longer inspired him, the victories felt hollow. He started asking deeper questions. What am I really here for? What is the point of all this? Instead of ignoring those questions, he listened. And what he discovered was a passion for education, for mentoring young people. So he left his high-paying role and dedicated himself to building programs for underprivileged students. Did he make less money? Yes. But did he make more meaning? Absolutely. He was no longer feeding just his ego, he was feeding his soul. And in the process, he was feeding the souls of hundreds of others. That is meaningful success. Jung often spoke about the balance between the inner world and the outer world. Selfish success is obsessed with the outer world, how you look, what you own, what others think of you. Meaningful success integrates both. It honors your inner calling and expresses it in a way that brings value to others. And this is where service comes in. True success is not measured by how much you accumulate, but by how much you contribute. Not by how loudly people cheer for you, but by how deeply you impact their lives. This doesn't mean you have to be a saint or give up your ambitions. It doesn't mean you must abandon material success. It means you shift the foundation. Instead of asking, "How much can I take?" you begin asking, "How much can I give?" Instead of chasing success to prove your worth, you create success as an expression of your worth. And that shift changes everything. Think about the people we admire most in history, the ones whose names echo long after they're gone. Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King Jr., Maya Angelou. These were not people who lived selfishly. They were people who listened to their inner truth, who embraced the process of individuation, and who used their lives in service of something larger. Their success was not about ego, it was about impact. And that is why it endures. Now, some of you might be thinking, "But I'm not Mandela. I'm not Mother Teresa. I'm just me." And that's the beauty of Jung's psychology. Individuation is not about becoming someone else, it is about becoming fully yourself. Your meaningful success does not have to look like saving a nation. It can look like being a parent who raises children with love and integrity. It can look like being a teacher who awakens a student's potential. It can look like being an artist who paints with such authenticity that someone feels less alone when they see your work. Meaningful success is not measured in size. It is measured in depth. And I want you to notice something here: meaningful success always involves others. It always has a ripple effect. Selfish success isolates you, meaningful success connects you. Selfish success leaves you grasping, meaningful success leaves you giving. And in that giving, you receive something no amount of ego-driven achievement can provide: fulfillment. That quiet, deep, unshakable sense that your life matters. Jung warned us about living only for the persona, the mask we show the world. He said that if we cling too tightly to the persona, we will one day experience the breakdown of our inner life. But when we choose individuation, when we dare to remove the mask and live from our true self, we find a success that is not fragile. Because it is not dependent on applause, not threatened by comparison, not shaken by criticism. It is rooted in who we are, and therefore, it is unshakable. I remember a conversation I once had with a woman who had reached extraordinary heights in her profession. She told me, "I realized that the more I focused on what I could give, the more alive I felt. The more I focused only on myself, the more empty I became." That is the secret. Success that serves only the ego drains you. Success that flows from your true self and serves others energizes you. And here is what is so powerful: when you live in alignment with your authentic self and dedicate that self to meaningful service, success follows naturally. Not always in the form of riches or fame, but in the form of resonance. Doors open. Synchronicities happen. The right people appear. Jung called this synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences that guide us when we are on the path of the soul. Life begins to flow with a kind of grace that ego alone cannot manufacture. So what does this mean for you, sitting here, listening, reflecting? It means you have a choice. You can chase selfish success, building a life that looks impressive but feels empty. Or you can choose meaningful success, building a life that feels true and touches others. One path leaves you hungry no matter how much you eat. The other path leaves you full even when the plate looks modest. The call of individuation, the call of meaningful success, is the call to courage. Because it takes courage to remove the mask. It takes courage to listen to your soul in a world that keeps telling you to feed your ego. It takes courage to serve when it would be easier to hoard. But that courage is what transforms a life from ordinary to extraordinary. And as I look at you, as I imagine each of you in your journey, I want you to know this: your soul is already whispering to you. It may be a faint whisper right now, beneath the noise of ambition and expectation, but it is there. And it is saying, this is who you really are. This is the life you are meant to live. This is how you can serve. Listen to that whisper. Honor it. Follow it. Because when you do, you will not only succeed, you will become whole. And that, my friends, is Jung's great warning and his great gift. Selfish success can make you powerful in the eyes of the world but hollow in the eyes of your soul. Meaningful success may not always shine as brightly on the outside, but it will light you from within. And that light, your authentic, indivisible, radiant self, will not only guide you, it will guide everyone whose life you touch. So let us remember this: the real measure of success is not how high you climb, but how deeply you serve. Because in the end, it is not the ego's victories that endure, it is the soul's contributions that leave a lasting legacy.